Before I get into the Coachmetrix application itself, let me give you a quick high-level overview of how Coachmetrix works. Typically what happens at the start of an executive coaching engagement is there's some kind of data gathering or assessment, whether it's through an online 360, a verbal 360, or some other mechanism. The participant has a chance to go through that assessment. They reflect individually and probably with their coach in a couple of coaching sessions. And then this is where Coachmetrix starts to come into play. The action plan gets built online. We calibrate that action plan between the participant, the coach, and the manager. Coachmetrix has a feature where you can export or share your action plan with anyone you choose to. And then we begin the ongoing pulse feedback process, where we send pulse feedback surveys out to supporters. Supporters are stakeholders who are impacted by the leadership behaviors, and they're providing ongoing feedback and feed forward. All right, let's go over to the Coachmetrix application now to see how this process plays out. So when you sign into Coachmetrix, you're going to land on the projects page, and each of these horizontal shaded lines represent a different project. A project can be a one-on-one executive coaching engagement. It could be an executive coaching engagement with multiple coachees. It could be a leadership development program, and it could be a team development program as well. So I'm going to click on this executive coaching engagement that we have going on with Nia Williams. And when I click into this engagement, you'll see a couple of sub-navigation points up top where you can adjust the pulse feedback settings for the program. You can take some private notes for the program. As I scroll down, there's some data that's showing up. This data starts to show up after the pulse feedback process has begun. So I'm going to skip through that for now. And then on this projects page, you'll also see the participants who are in that project. In this case, we only have one participant, Nia Williams. And you'll see the coaches who are on this project. Again, on this project, we only have one coach. Her name's Coach Kim. So I'm going to click into Nia Williams' tile. And inside here, Nia sees almost the same exact information as the coach. We really wanted to build Coachmetrix so that the coach didn't have to have multiple logins to see what the participant sees. You're seeing the same information that your coachee, we call them a participant, is seeing in the platform. At the top of the page, you'll see some data. I'll come back to that data in a little while, because one of the first things that we're going to do in Coachmetrix is create some goals. So after that participant has received some form of data, whether it's through a feed forward exercise or a 360 exercise, that participant will create a goal in Coachmetrix. Now, either the participant can create the goal or the coach can create the goal, depending on what your coaching methodology looks like. To create a new goal, click on the Add Plus New button in the upper right-hand side. And in this area, you'll create a goal statement, a behavioral statement. This behavioral statement is the pulse survey item. So we want to write that in third-person perspective. This is the survey that will go out to your supporters. Supporters are people who are impacted by your leadership behaviors, by the leaders' behaviors, and will be the people who respond to the ongoing pulse feedback surveys. You can think of supporters as stakeholders who are impacted by the leaders' behaviors. And then there's a box for some additional details. We typically encourage people to add some simple, concise, bullet-pointed action items and support needed. Once that goal is built, this is how those goals will look inside of Coachmetrix. You can see in this example, the high-level goal statement. Nia wants to effectively participate in decision-making with peers and the management team so that we gain full commitment to the strategic direction. Here is the pulse survey item for that particular goal for Nia, and here are her action items and some additional next steps that she identified. The coach has the ability to add some comments here, so it's a great way to check in between coaching sessions. It's also a great way to do some online coaching to help your coachee, your participant, update their goals. So there's a variety of ways in which you can have some online discussion with your coachees. So that's sort of the main first feature in Coachmetrix, to create your goals inside of Coachmetrix. You also have the ability to share that action plan with other people. The action plan is a compilation really of all the goals. Either the participant or the coach can share the action plan. To share the action plan, click on the Share Action Plan button. And it doesn't give people access into Coachmetrics, but instead provides the opportunity to export the action plan to anyone you choose. So this is literally like a screenshot of the action plan. I can send it to my coach. I can send it to myself as the participant. I can send it to my supporters if they're added in the system, or anyone else. Just enter their email address. And there's a message here that's preloaded, which you can customize. Again, either the coach or the participant can share that action plan. Once the goals are built, the next step in the process is to add your supporters. Again, supporters are people who are impacted by the leader's behaviors, and these will be the people who will respond to the pulse feedback surveys. You can think about them as stakeholders if you follow Marshall Goldsmith's stakeholder-centered coaching methodology. To add a supporter, either the participant or the coach can do that. It's very simple. Click on the Add New Plus button in the right, add the supporter's name and email address, and you can click on this box if you want to send those supporters a welcome message. And once you click the Add Supporters button, it will send that welcome message and add those supporters into the system. If you have more than 7 supporters, you'll notice we give you space for 7 supporters. No problem, just add those 7, then you can click the Add New Plus button again and add any additional supporters that you'd like. We highly recommend that the participant enrolls their supporters verbally before adding them into Coachmetrics. Part of the methodology is to get clear on what you're working on. That's this goals section. The second part of the methodology is to go public with your goals so that people know what you're working on, and then add them into Coachmetrics after you've gone public with those goals. It helps to keep people engaged throughout the process. You'll get better survey responses as well. All right, so we've got goals in the system. We've added our supporters. The next step really is to start with the pulse feedback. So pulse feedback is sent out on an individual participant level basis. So once Nia Williams is ready, as the coach, I'm going to click on the feedback button. And I have 2 options for sending the pulse feedback out. I can either automate the process, or I can send an immediate pulse feedback request out. To automate the process, and by the way, this is probably the most popular option that our subscribers use, click on the Automate Pulse Feedback button, and this is going to enable you to send out pulse feedback so you can basically set it and forget it. So to set your pulse feedback, you'll click on the Enable Pulse Feedback Requests. This allows you to change the frequency of the pulse feedback. It's currently defaulted to 45 days. If you want to change it to 30 days or 90 days, whatever your methodology is, you can add the frequency date. So once you set the date of your pulse feedback, the pulse feedback will go out every 45 days in this particular case. I want to point you to the pulse feedback project settings. Again, you'll adjust these settings on the projects page, or you can click on this link if you want to adjust those settings here. In this particular case, we have 3 rounds of pulse feedback that are going to go out. We are using a scale of -3 to +3, where 0 represents no change. You can adjust the format scale in the pulse feedback settings area of Coachmetrics. And we're using an anonymous setting, and reminders are on. You'll also on this page be able to see pulse feedback history if the pulse feedback has already started. So once you get all of these settings set up, click Save, and the pulse feedback will go out automatically. One feature that we love and our subscribers love that we really want to point you to is having the ability to preview your pulse feedback survey. Click on this link. Oftentimes, participants will ask, or even coaches will ask, hey, what does the pulse feedback look like? Well, this is what it looks like. In the case of Nia Williams, this is her 3rd of 3 rounds. We're measuring 3 behaviors here. We're measuring those behaviors on a scale of -3 to +3. The participant and the supporters have the ability to also respond not applicable. And then you'll notice the open-ended box, suggestions and ideas to improve in this area for the next 30 days. This is ultimately feed-forward comments that are helpful for the participant to continue to make behavioral change. So that's the pulse feedback process. So just sort of to recap quickly, we've added our goals to the system. We've added our supporters in the system. We've started our pulse feedback process. If you want, you can use the request immediate pulse feedback. This allows you to send out pulse feedback on demand whenever you want, as opposed to scheduling it, setting it, and forgetting it. To do that instead, you can click on this button. You'll select the supporters that you want to be included in that round of pulse feedback, and then click your send request button, and that next round of pulse feedback will go out. Again, most likely you'll end up using this automate pulse feedback. Once the pulse feedback data starts to come in, that's when dynamically you're going to start seeing this metrics show up at both the participant level and the project level. So you can see this data, and you can view the data either as a line graph or a bar chart. And you can see the scale that we're using here for Naya, -3 to +3. 0 represents no change. So if Naya is getting better, she'll start showing up above the line. If she's getting worse in these behaviors, she'll show up below the line. And then you can see in this project we have 1, 2, 3 rounds of pulse feedback. Again, if you want to adjust the number of rounds of pulse feedback, you can go back to the project level and click on your pulse feedback settings. As the data comes in, as you scroll to the bottom of this pulse feedback page, you'll start to see those open-ended feed-forward comments. So those start to show up here with the supporter information. The supporter name in this project setting is anonymous, so we're protecting the anonymity of the supporter. You can change that setting before you send out the pulse feedback rounds if you've got an environment where you want your supporters' names to be shown here. So their open-ended comments show up, their scores show up, and then you'll also notice our participant, Naya Williams, she's also given a survey. So her comments show up here along with her scores here, and it helps Naya, the participant, understand her self-perspective versus others' perspectives. As the project moves on and you have multiple rounds of pulse feedback and you want to go to previous rounds to see how those rounds showed up, you can click on this drop-down box, click go, it will show you the data for round number 1. You'll also notice some really important information here that will be helpful for you as the coach. Data on when the survey rounds were sent out. The initial survey in this case was sent out on May 5th, 2022. It tells you that 4 of 6 surveys were returned, and it tells you when the reminder surveys went out as well. So sometimes that's helpful information. So again, just to recap, we've got adding goals to the system. That's sort of step 1. We add our supporters to the system. That's step number 2. And then when you're ready to start your pulse feedback, click on the feedback link underneath the participant's name, and you can automate that pulse feedback request, or you can send out immediate pulse feedback. Let's go on to a few other features inside of Coachmetrics. There's a feature called the resources feature. And resources are any combination of documents, images, text, video, that you can use throughout your engagement. What we know as coaches is we typically have a ton of content. So resources are the ability to create content and then use and repurpose that content throughout your engagement. So the place to build your resources is found underneath the library. The library houses resources, collections, assignments, and templates. Again, these are all repeatable tools that you can use across your projects. To build a resource, it's very simple. Just click on the Add plus New button, title your resource. You can add tags to the resources. Tags are a great way to organize your library, especially if you start building a number of resources. And then you add your content in here. Again, any combination of text, document uploads, videos. You can link to videos on Vimeo or YouTube, or any attachments that you have. So here's a couple of examples of what resources might look like. Let's take a look at the feedback coaching conversation. In this particular case, we've got some text, and we have a link to a video on Vimeo, and then some reflection questions. So once I've built my resources, those resources are housed inside this library in the resources section. And once I'm ready to share those resources, I just choose the resource that I want to share. Let's share this effective communication strategy resource. I click on the three dots off to the right. I can choose to share those with my coaches. If I have sub-coaches on my account, I can share those with my coaches so that those coaches can then share them with their participants. Or if I'm the only coach on the account, I can share my resource with my participants. I'll just click Share with Participants. I'll choose the project with whom I want to share the resource. In this case, we'll share it just with Naya. And then when I click Share the resource, that resource will be shared with Naya, and you'll get a success message here. The next feature in Coachmetrics is collections. You can think about collections as a logical grouping of resources so that you could create a welcome kit, as an example, for your participant, or you can create a mini course, or you can just have like a logical group of resources that you want to share with your participant in one chunk, if you will. So here's an example of a welcome kit. The welcome kit includes this text, which is just kind of a welcome letter to my participant, and then 4 resources that are grouped together in this collection. Welcome to coaching video, if you want to insert a video in there. You can put your coaching agreements in here. You can include a definition of Coachmetrics terms in this particular case. You can basically include anything else. In this case, we're showing the Coachmetrics process. So it's a great way to build something once and then to be able to use it across all of your projects. Here's a quick Coach Team Members Effectively mini course that we've created. There is some text along with a quick video about a coaching framework. There is some more text with a second video. These videos are out on Vimeo along with some reflection questions, and then a third video that's here. So this effectively serves as a mini course. Very easy to build this content. You probably already have a ton of content as a coach. We wanted to create an opportunity to get that content online without having to create a complex e-learning system, if you will. The next feature in Coachmetrics underneath your library, again, up here in the upper navigation area, is an assignments feature. The assignments feature allows you to create individual assignments so that it ultimately becomes a to-do list for your participants. If you really want to get granular and help them understand what's next after each coaching session, you can create an assignment. The assignment gets held inside of your assignments area of your library, and then you can use that assignment across all of your projects. We also have discussion templates. Discussion templates are templates that of communication that you might use very consistently throughout a coaching engagement. For example, a coaching session reminder. We know that oftentimes coaches will send a reminder to their coachee, and usually it's in the form of an email where you have to upload a Word document. The coachee has to download the Word document, save the Word document, upload it again, and send it back to the coachee. Well, Coachmetrics takes care of all of that for you. You can build a preloaded template so that you don't have to prepare the same email every time you want to send the coachee a message. So you'll build those templates inside of the discussion templates area of Coachmetrics. Let me show you how some of this plays out on Naya's project. So if we go back into our project, I'll select Naya. We'll go back into Naya's account. If I go into the discussions area of Coachmetrics here, and a couple of quick notes here. If you label your subject lines really clearly, it starts to create a nice historical area within your engagement. So it helps the coach prep faster for the coaching session. It also becomes this one-stop hub for Naya, your coachee. So I was just talking about discussion templates. If I want to start a discussion with Naya, I can click Start a Discussion. If I have those templates built, I can select the template, for example, Coaching Session Reminder. It pre-populates the subject line, so I could change this to Coaching Session number 3, Reminder and Prep. Let's change this to September 22nd. And then I can just simply add my coachee's name. Look forward to our coaching session on September 7th or 22nd. If she had previous field work, you could add that there and add your coach's name here. So it's just a great way to optimize your communication and not have to create the same email that you use throughout your entire engagement over and over again. In your discussion, if you choose, you can also schedule it for a later date. So sometimes on a Friday, you might want to get your pre-coaching session messages out for the following week, but you want those to be sent on Monday. You can use that scheduled discussion for later feature in many different ways. Once you click Start the Discussion, Naya will receive that discussion. She gets an email anytime we add a discussion or anytime we add a resource or a collection or anytime we respond in a comment box. So an email is automatically generated. She gets that in her inbox so she knows something new has happened in Coachmetrics, and she can click on a link and it'll take her right into the thread of, in this particular case, the discussion feature in Coachmetrics. Assignments will show up here underneath the assignments link for Naya. She can check off these assignments as she finishes those assignments. There's a journal feature. This is private to Naya. She could also choose to share her journal entries with her coach. And finally, one item for the coach is you can take some private notes. These are private to the coach. Naya will not see those notes. And if there are other coaches on your account, other coaches will not see those notes as well. So that's Coachmetrics. You can add your goals, add your supporters. Once you start your pulse feedback, the data starts to show up. You can dive into the Coachmetrics feedback, the pulse feedback, to see the open-ended comments as well as the graphical data. You can add resources, collections, assignments, discussion templates to your library. And you'll also know there's some reporting functionality that's in here as well. A couple of quick final notes in this quick demo today. There's a support feature in the upper right. You can find some interesting resources in the community page. This community page provides some additional support for you as a coach, some business development support. We have some recordings of all of our past best practices masterclass and other sales and service support for you. And then our knowledge base is here. So if you need access to other tutorials, quick start guides, and pretty much anything else on how to use Coachmetrics, including frequently asked questions, you can find that in our knowledge base. Thank you so much for being part of the Coachmetrics community, and we look forward to hearing your feedback in the near future.